Blackmail, the first story. The rest a family member of imperial history, who stands in the street once by chance, a man in a fancy dress, who comes to talk to him. The family member told him gradually when the man asked him the family's owner's name and rank. The man introduced himself and said, "My surname is Wang. I am an inside man in the princess's house." The more they talked, the more they speculated. Today, with a sinister career, those who are big officials depend on you, said Mr. Wang. Who does your master depend on? The family said. No, Wang said. It's called throwing away a fortune and forgetting the big one. And the family said, well, who's to lean on? My princess is a courtesy, a patron. The man said, I introduced a certain groom to the public. If I give 1,000 coins for a face-to-face salute, it will be easy to see the princess. The family was happy to ask him where he lived. Live in the same alley every day, don't you know? Said Mr. Wang, pointing at his front door. The family came home and told Yushi, who was happy. We've prepared a feast, and we've asked the family to invite Wang Goxing. At the banquet, Wang gave a detailed account of the princess's temperament and the trifles of her life, and said, if I didn't see the camaraderie of living in an alley together, or if I was offered 100 taels of silver, I wouldn't serve either. The emperor admires him even more. When they parted, they agreed on the date of Princess Jin's appointment, and Wang said, you have to prepare the present. I saw the opportunity to tell the princess that I will tell you sooner or later. After many days, Wang came on a beautiful horse and said to Imperial History, you'll get dressed and come with me with presents. The princess is too busy. She's been met by a steady stream of people, from morning till night. There's no time. It's just a bit empty now. You have to hurry. If you're delayed, you don't know when you'll see it. Yushi took out the gold and silver gift and went with him. It took me 12 miles to get to the door of the princess's house. Yasutoshigo Shishima, the king, first went in with the gift. After a long wait, Wang Jikai came out and declared, Princess Tuan calls a royal history. Several people followed, one after another. Miyazi arched herself into the Fuman Gate and saw a beautiful woman sitting on the high hall, with her heaven-like appearance and bright clothes. The maids were all dressed in fairy embroidered clothes, standing on both sides. The princess was ordered to sit on the eaves and offer tea in a golden bowl. After a few pleasant words from the princess, Miyazi retreated with reverence. Then came the gift of a pair of satin boots and a mink hat from the palace. When Yushi came home, he thanked the Wang and sent a message to thank him. At Wang's house, the door was closed and there was no one inside. Royal suspicions that the princess waiting for Wang is not back yet. I went 3 times in 3 days, and I never saw him. Send for the princess, and the gate is locked. There were never any princesses here. A few people who rented these houses the other day have been gone for 3 days. Residents were asked. The emissary returns to tell the imperial court that the master and servant are nothing more than drowning. The second story, a lieutenant general, with a lot of money, wants to be promoted to the lord, and has no way out. One day, a man in a leather robe on a horse visited and introduced himself as my brother-in-law is a close servant of the emperor. After tea, he asked the deputy general to speak to him privately, saying, there is a place that is short of a general. If you spend more money, I will instruct my brother-in-law to promote your abilities in front of the emperor. You can get this place, and the powerful cannot take it away from you. The deputy general suspected him of talking nonsense, and the man said, you don't have to hesitate about this. I just want to take a little bite out of my brother-in-law. General, I don't want any money. Let's make a number, write a letter, wait for the emperor to call, and then you'll pay. If you don't, who will take your money from you? The deputy general said yes with pleasure. The next day, the man came to see his brother-in-law with the deputy general. His brother-in-law said to himself, surname Tian. It's a rich family, like the queen's. When the deputy general visited, his surname was arrogant and he didn't answer. The introducer, holding the written document, told the deputy general, we have just consulted with our brother-in-law, and we can't do this without $12,000. Please draw the cuffs in the back. The deputy general did. Qian said, I'm afraid he will regret it." The introducer laughed and said, "Your brother is worried. If you can give him an official, can't you get rid of him? Besides, there are so many people who are willing to hand over. We can't afford it. The general has a great future and should not lose his conscience." The lieutenant general rushed to say, "I'll be sure to send you a letter within 3 days." 2 days later, just after sundown, a few people shouted and ran in, saying, "The emperor is waiting for you." The deputy general was so surprised he rushed to the palace. The emperor sat on the golden globe, and the samurai stood with great authority. The deputy general is busy kneeling. Long live the 3 calls. The emperor asked him to sit down, gave him a few words of condolence, and looked at the ministers on both sides and said, "I heard that the deputy general is highly skilled, brave and good at war. Today, I see you. You are certainly the material of a general. That place is very dangerous." He told the deputy general, "Now, please appoint you to be a general. Don't let me down. The letter of appointment will be written soon." Deputy General Shane stepped back. Then the other day, the man in the jumpsuit on a horse followed him to his home and took the money as per the number on the letterhead. So the deputy general waited confidently for the appointment, bragging to friends and family all day about his glory. A few days later, I heard that the general's vacancy had been filled. The deputy general, in a fit of rage, ran to the battalion hall and argued indignantly, "I am the general of the place where the emperor has personally sealed it. Why did you send someone else? It's strange, chief of staff, to hear him tell the story of the emperor's summons, but it's more than a dream. The chief of staff is on fire. Arrest him and put him in jail." It was then that the deputy general gave the name of the man who had introduced him, but there was no such person in North Korea. It took another $12,000 for the deputy general to be fired and released. It's weird, the military attaché is a fool, but is the court a fake? There must be some illusion involved. The real thieves don't have guns or knives, they're just people. The third story, the Liaozhai student in Jiaxiang County who plays the piano well. On one of his occasional trips to the eastern suburbs, he saw the 2 men dig out an ancient organ from the earth and buy it for little money. Back home, wipe the piano clean, giving off a bizarre glow. The tone was very clear, and Li Sheng was so happy that he was able to get a gem, put it in a bag, hide it in a secret room, even if his closest friends wouldn't show it. There's a new county chief named Chang, with a famous post to visit Li Sheng. Mr. Li is a lonely character who rarely makes friends, because the county governor first visited him, and he had to go back to pay his respects. After a few days, the prefectural governor came to buy him another drink. Li Sheng couldn't pass it off, so he went. The county chief is elegant and delightful, and Li Sheng likes him very much. One day later, Li Sheng took the invitation and asked Shan Sheng to return it. The 2 laughed and chatted very well. From then on, the 2 often laughed over a drink. More than a year later, Li Sheng was living in the county seat when he stumbled upon a violin wrapped in a brocade on a desk. Mr. Li took it out and played it a few times. "Do you understand the piano too?" the county governor asked. Li Sheng said, "This is my favorite in life. It hasn't been a day since we've been dating. How come I've never heard of your masterstroke?" So I opened the incense stove, and I burned the incense and asked Li Sheng to play. Li Sheng played a tune, and the prefect said, "Of course you're good. I'd like to give you a little trick. Please don't laugh." Then there's the wine warrior, which sounds crisp and pleasant, with a sense of levity and otherworldness. Li Sheng is very impressed and would like to worship him as a teacher. They became friends again, and the friendship deepened. More than a year later, the prefect taught Li all his musical skills. However, every time the prefect visited Li's home, Li played the common piano to him, and never leaked the ancient piano. One night, the 2 men were slightly drunk, and the prefect said, "I'm doing a new drill. Would you like to listen to it?" After that, he played his song of Xiang Fei, which was sobbing and complaining, and Li Xinglian claimed praise. The county chief said, "It's a pity that there isn't a harmonica. If there is a harmonica, the tones will be even better." "I hid an ancient piano, which was extraordinary," Li said happily. "How dare you hide it when you have a voice? So I went to the back room, opened the closet and took out the guqin. The prefectural chief dusted the dust off his duster with his clothes and laid it on the table for a single. With a sharp, soft tone and a subtly exquisite performance that Mr. Li kept tapping. My awkward piano skills veiled the fine organ. Mr. Xian said, if I could get my wife to play, there might be a sound or two. Is your wife also fluent in the piano? Mr. Li said in a surprise. Xian Cheng said, that's what I learned from my wife. It's a pity that in the boudoir, the children can't hear her, Li said. We are close, says Mr. Xian. We don't have to be bound by vulgarity. Tomorrow, please take the piano to my house, and I'll ask her to play it for you through the curtain. Li happily agreed. The next day, Li Sheng went with the violin. The prefectural chief prepared the wine, and the two drank each other. After a while, the county chief took the piano and turned around and came out to sit. At this point, a beautiful woman appears, and a strong aroma permeates the curtain. After a while, the strings floated, and Li Sheng could not understand the music he played, only to feel like he was in a state of shock. When it was over, someone lifted a corner of the curtain and peeked out. Li Shengyi, a 20-something Chinese woman, turned out to be a wonderful woman. With a large drink of advice, the prefect popped up his gift of leisure again. Li's business was shaken, and he drank glasses of it, and ended up getting drunk, leaving the room, asking for the guqin. You're too drunk to fall on the road, Mr. Xian said. You come back tomorrow, and I'll have my wife give her her best. The next day, Mr. Li visited Mr. Xian's apartment, where he was quietly guarded by a single old servant. Li asked the old servant, who said, on May Day, I took my family with me and didn't know what I was doing. He said he'll be back in 3 days. 3 days later, Mr. Li returned to Cheng's home, and when it was dark and nowhere to be seen, the county bureaucrats and government employees became suspicious and reported the order. Open the county governor's door and there is nothing left but tables, chairs and empty beds. Just report it to the provincial capital. And I don't know what's going on. Li Sheng lost his guqin, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and had to go thousands of miles to Hunan, the home of the county chief. 3 years ago, the prefect paid for an official job in Jiaxiang. Li Sheng asked his hometown by his name. Not quite the same in Hunan. Someone said, there's a priest named Cheng who plays the piano, and legend has it that there's a little bit of gold in the magic. 3 years ago, I left suddenly, and I never came back. Mr. Li suspected that this was the Taoist priest, and asked in detail about his age and appearance. All the same. That's why Mr. Cheng paid for the official's work, all to deceive the guqin. After more than a year of dating, they never talked about music, gradually took out the piano, gradually played the piano skills, and gradually confused him with beautiful people. After 3 years of hard work, guqin was finally deceived of. Cheng Daoshi has a greater fondness for the piano than Li Sheng. Liars in the world, crafty, like Mr. Cheng, are the most elegant of them all.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.